Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Wizards & Warriors X, Fortress of Fear, brought to us by Acclaim and Rare. The third game with the Wizards & Warriors name, though the third Wizards & Warriors game would come out for NES a couple of years after this one. This game takes place several years after the second Wizards & Warriors game, Iron Sword. Once again, you're dealing with the evil Malkill who has kidnapped the Princess Elaine, so once again, Kuros needs to set off in order to save her and stop Malkill, and the whole game takes place within the Fortress of Fear. This is a much more linear experience than the other Wizards & Warriors titles. You're not having to do exploring to find items, to get past guardians, or collect a certain number of gems in order to advance. It's much more about the platforming and dealing with the enemies. As you can see, with the limitations of the Game Boy and the smaller screen, they did make everything quite big on screen, so you can kinda see everything relatively well for the most part. There's a lot of enemies that can do a lot of damage to you, just like any of the Wizards & Warriors titles. But just like those other ones, it's a good idea to try not to face off against many enemies unless you absolutely have to. Many enemies, especially early on, we can skip. Unfortunately, your health does not replenish between levels, though there are a few occasions where you'll be able to get health pickups from either the chalices laying on the ground, pieces of meat, or picking up a potion of healing from one of the many chests. The chests in the game contain different items such as the potion of healing, you have the invincibility potion, as well as a couple of items like the boots that'll help us jump higher that we must get, and a shield that we can get as well that will help our defense. Fortress of Fear is broken up into 5 chapters with a boss at the end of each, but each level has multiple areas in each one of them. As you can see, as you complete each part of a level, it will tell you that you have at least advanced that little bit. Some areas are broken up into multiple rooms. For this area, I recommend taking out the enemies slowly as you walk across. Thankfully, there's a large piece of meat here. Enemy respawning, and when they will spawn, is a bit finicky as far as if sometimes every one of the enemies that are supposed to appear will. Sometimes you'll get doubles of enemies real quickly. However, things like fireballs, flying arrows, or spears that come from off screen are always coming at you from the same locations every time, so you can kind of get used to knowing when they're going to be coming your way and be prepared to duck or jump, and ducking is actually quite efficient in the game. Here we have our first boss that we're going to be dealing with. We're going to drop down to the bottom level here. This flying bat enemy will swoop down, and on the bottom platform it's less likely for him to run into us. As he returns to the upper platform, you can actually jump up there as well and swing the sword a little bit. Holding up on the D-pad and pressing the attack button will allow you to do that upward swing so you can attack enemies in the air. This lower platform is a pretty good spot, though sometimes he can swoop around it, so you may need to leave it, but that is a relatively safe zone to be at in order to deal enough damage to take out that first boss, and we're moving on to the next chapter. Even though we do move on to the next level, it's not going to look all that different. Since you're staying all within the Fortress of Fear, the game pretty much looks the same from the beginning to the end, with a few special occasion levels, such as like the top of the castle or the entrance that we saw in the first level. During this section, duck a little bit, deal with the spider and bat before jumping up to the upper platform, and you can pick up that piece of meat. Be careful of the drips. They all are going to come down at the same spots. It's not random, so you will know where they are, but you just want to be careful not to run into them. If you have more than one key, you're good, but if you don't, make sure you pick up this one key and don't go to the chest at the bottom here. Instead, go to the chest above and you will get the boots that will allow you to jump higher, and we need those to get over the gap right here. Wait for the platform to lower just a bit and then jump towards it. You'll pick up a few extra keys as well as we hit the exit of this area. As soon as we begin the level, you're going to be bombarded with fireballs. Do a big jump with those boots. You can really get some height, so you can hopefully get over a lot of the projectiles that will come flying in your direction. Stay along the top portion here, as that's the easier way. You can grab some items down below if you want to go and risk that health, but you'll probably just end up taking more damage than it's worth to pick up those few items. beginning of the next area, you can jump straight up to this area and pick up this key. There are chests that contain multiples of the same items, such as the boots, and you'll end up just getting another pair if you end up running into those same chests. You get some points, but that's really about it as far as any benefit. Be cautious of a couple of skeletons here. You can actually time it when they get together to jump over both. Watch out for the flame right here, and then take out this skeleton before attempting to run through a little corridor, or else you'll end up taking some damage. Make a giant leap over the skull, and then duck immediately here. Crawl a little bit, take out the one flying skull right towards you, and then go to the door. Either one's going to exit you out here, but we're going to take the bottom path, and you'll see as soon as you begin the next area, you're going to want to jump. If you do that correctly, you can avoid almost all those enemies and then take the upper path for the first little bit of the stage, and it'll help you out. There is an extra life located there. The small little Kuro statues still represent them like the previous Wizards and Warriors games. There's a few in the levels, but not too many that you'll be able to find. The next area, these skulls are one of the worst enemies to deal with. Try to take it slow and just maneuver around them the best possible. Here you have this very, very annoying jump inside this skull. You just gotta time it right for when it's opening, and then do a little short hop inside. I've failed so many times making that jump sometimes and ended up missing it, landing into the pit below and losing a life. This level is one of the worst for me, and I have a lot of practice with it. You get bombarded with a few flying axes right away, and then another set of axes, which if you're on the top layer you can jump over, but if you're on the bottom layer it's a little harder. You then have to slowly move between these swinging axes, jumping in between as well to avoid other flying ones. Right here with this dragon, you just have to take out the enemy, I recommend first, and then run to the door when you think there's an opening. More than likely you're going to take at least one hit, but hopefully only one hit. Sometimes you can take 2, 3, or 4 hits from that dragon depending on the pattern of fire that he ends up throwing out. As soon as the next area begins, you're immediately hit with more axes, so jump over one and duck under the next, or jump over both of them with a high enough jump. Thankfully this bat won't do too much damage as you'll run into it. Here's another pair of those boots of jumping you can grab right here as we make it to the upper platform. A few big leaps that we'll need to do, plenty of bats coming our way. We're just going to ignore most enemies as we reach this door on the far end. In the next room, start off by jumping over the flying axe as well as a bat that's going to come your way. There's a very annoying enemy right here. I try to wait for him to be on the right side of the platform, jump on it, and then immediately attack a couple of quick times to take him out. The next door that we need is right on that next platform, so you can just jump to it and go right inside and avoid those enemies. Next up is the next boss, a really annoying giant skull that bounces around. It does the same pattern though over and over again, so you can kind of find some safe spots in order to kind of stand around and be able to avoid it. And that's really the key with most of the bosses in this game, are finding little safe zones within its pattern to be at, so you can avoid getting run into by it and deliver some hits. It doesn't take too many hits to take out the skull, and we're moving on to the next part of the game. Next up is a pretty annoying hallway that we have to slowly kind of move our way through. There's arrows coming our way, annoying bats coming up and down, as well as these marching soldier guys. Attack the soldiers from behind if possible before attempting to run across them, because there is that low ceiling. You'll just end up bumping your head and end up taking damage. Thankfully, after this area, if you're able to survive, there is some healing items coming up. There is a potion of healing in the next area, as well as there is that chalice located right here in this opening. Not too thrilling of an area, but it is a difficult one to kind of go through. Just keep slowly making your way through enemy by enemy, and eventually you will make it to the end of this hall. The next room, all you're going to do is jump onto the small moving platform and then to the top level and to the left, and now we're on the outside top of the castle that we have to work our way through. As soon as we begin, start by immediately attacking a little bit. You'll hopefully be able to take out the flying eagle enemies. They're going to try to bombard you right near the start. There's lots of arrows coming your way. If you jump up in the air with those high jumps using those boots, you should be able to hopefully get over some of those arrows coming your way. Ignore that first chest, grab the second one if you've taken some damage, as it is a much needed potion of healing to fully replenish our health bar. Thankfully, we're almost near the end, but right at the end you get lots of arrows, some bats, and birds potentially flying at you. Some giant jumps will really help you hopefully be able to get over them. Once we reach the end of the top here, though, it's time to battle the next boss. This boss is another annoying one, but there are some safe kind of areas you can be in to help you deal with the boss. On the bottom level here, you can see where the pattern kind of comes at you. Diving downwards, going up, and then coming back around, diving again. If you stay on the left side, you can avoid the dives, and then after it comes back on that second dive, you can move away from it quickly, and then attack it as it will come to a dead stop. It does the same exact pattern over and over again, and once you've realized this pattern, you should be able to keep dealing in enough hits. It'll take a few, but this boss will go down. You're moving on to the final areas of the game. As the area begins, we're going to start off by grabbing a couple of gems if you want to, and you can then jump to the platform above and go right through that next door. There's several doors and stuff that we're going to be entering in throughout this. In the next room, ignore the staircase above us, watching out for the flames as we make this jump, and you want to go through the staircase on the bottom here. Now, the next room begins. Jump over a couple of soldier guys. You can take them out if you want to, but you'll probably end up taking more damage than it's worth, and just go right immediately into the opening right nearby. Next is a hallway of horror, as you have lots of skulls flying your way. I hate these guys. Just kind of slowly move, taking out each one if you possibly can, while you slowly maneuver your way through. Thankfully, though, this area isn't as long as the similar one we did just a little bit ago. Next up is another one of those rooms with axes and a flying spear or two. Thankfully, though, the door we need is right after where we entered into. Next up, watch out for a couple of bats. There's some drips going on the bottom part, but our goal is the top platform, so thankfully a pretty easy room right there. The next room has more of the skulls. Taking the upper path, you can at least avoid a good chunk of them. You'll have to deal with probably a few down here. You can use that upper swing to kind of help you out. There's also a chalice located over to the right side that can be very useful. And the up and down moving platform in this pit at the end is what we need to rise up on in order to get to the upper door. This room, wait for the couple of skulls to come towards you, and then you can kind of slide underneath a few and do a jump after the first two, and then finally one more jump over the last skull, all the way over to the right, takes you to the door, which is where the location of Malkill is. If you have any extra keys, hopefully you have at least one, go up here, grab yourself the Shield of Protection. This will help you out for this final fight a bit. It's kind of a crapshoot, but he does run the same pattern like all the other bosses. Our main goal is to deliver as many stabs as we can. I'm not going to really move off this platform. I'm just going to stay on this one and keep on stabbing. If you time it right with some stabs or where he is located and flies over you or through you, you can actually negate him actually damaging you sometimes. Just keep staying on this platform, keep stabbing forward every time you get that opportunity to deliver a couple of hits, and just keep on going. Like I said, sometimes if he runs through you at the right moment while you're attacking, it'll actually negate his attack, but it doesn't happen all the time. After delivering enough hits, though, you get the brief ending to Wizards and Warriors Chapter X. Yep, so there you have it, Wizards and Warriors Chapter X Fortress of Fear for the Nintendo Game Boy. Very small ending, but at least you get a little something, I guess. And then, of course, you can put in your initials for the high score leaderboard if you want to do so. Kind of the oddball of the Wizards and Warriors games, but an interesting one still nonetheless. With that, guys, though, it's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.